Is there such thing as too much world building? No, not really. There's your answer. That's the entire video right there. Can I expand on this though? Wait and see, I guess. Hello, I am Bones. I write comics and I do daily videos nowadays about comics, specifically writing. My wife does all the artwork, and today I wanted to talk about how much is too much world building? Is there such thing as too much world building? And clearly I already answered the question, but I did get this question on YouTube. I answer questions both on YouTube and on my Discord, which is linked below, I think. I'm so terrible at linking things. I'm so sorry about that. I deeply, deeply apologize. Yeah, I don't think there's such a thing as too much world building. That said, if you want to actually get to your comic and you want to get things done, there is going to be a point where maybe you're doing a bit too much, but it really depends. It 100% depends, because it's kind of like a balance between doing something because it's fun and you love it, and doing too much of that thing and never getting anything done. After a certain point of world building, you definitely get into the territory that you're basically just doing another hobby on the side, which is fine. That's kind of the point of contention, right? It's like, it's fine to have hobbies. World building can be a hobby, but not all of it is essential. I think more of your world building is essential than you expect, but it's not all essential. The kind of the deal with world building is you do want to build more of it than you put on your actual page, but you don't want to be building too much that is like not important to the story. Generally, stories are going to focus on a small portion of your world building, and what you want to do is dig into that and dig superficially kind of around that to give this impression of depth, and then you want to dig really deep into whatever topic is the main focus of your story. Like, I have a comic, The Books of Avo. I dug very deeply into the background, the lore of the world, I guess, the gods and goddesses, the spirits that make up all of that. That stuff is deeply considered and put together. But the larger world of Avo, the different groups of humans and their political inklings and stuff, like, I really only focus on the stuff that's brought up. I don't really have huge world building that goes along with each and everything. In fact, there's not really humans outside of the ones that I mentioned in the story. Like, they're implied to exist, but I've never actually dug into it, and I don't really have a huge interest in that. And that's kind of just the case for the Books of Avo. I really wanted to focus on the story about the gods and the immortals in the world, and I wanted the humans to exist within the world and be fleshed out enough that they feel real, and I didn't want to overdo it. And I mean, it's weird because with Avo there is a bunch of superfluous world building, because I did start writing it when I was 12 years old or whatever, so I had lots of time to work on it and think about it and not actually write it. But that was more me learning how to write in general. So there was a lot of stuff that got made for Avo that got scrapped in the end, but a lot of the major plot points with the gods and the pantheon, they stayed pretty similar, surprisingly similar. For my other comics, for the Magpie, I have really sat down and figured out how the Elder Gods work. It's within our world, so there's not a whole bunch of extra world building that needs to be done. So that one's good. I don't go in depth figuring out how my additions to this world would affect every single little thing. I think you can end up in weird problematic spaces if you do. See J.K. Rowling as example, right? But yeah, that's fine. Scourge of 9 Point, I did a lot of excess world building, but I have largely focused on what I do want to exist in the world. I haven't really gone off in the weeds too much. I sat down and I figured out every single possible animal that could exist within 9 Point because I set out some basic parameters where I wanted non-ungulate mammals to all exist as anthros in the world. So I kind of sat down and figured out basics for each of those like animal species, how they would work in 9 Point. And like that's a bit overboard, but it was fun, so it skirted the edge there. But it does help to have that to refer back to. Like I have like a big Bible, world building Bible of different animals I can pick from, and that does help. And I try to add them, but I don't feel obligated to add everything. And I haven't fully fleshed out every single little bit of lore about the animals. And that's where most of my lore work went into the Scourge of 9 Point. Whereas, like, I focused a little bit on the magic system, and I spread outward from that magic system. And I focused a lot on, like, the cats, because 9 Point is about cat knights, so I really figured out how their world works and small things within it that make it different and unique. But beyond that, I haven't gone hugely into every little detail. Crow Story. Crow Story is where I went off the deep end. Okay, so Crow Story is a big epic fantasy story that I still haven't published, and that is just to showcase the fact that if you live in world building hell, nothing ever gets created, so we need to be careful in it. Crow Story, I've really sat down and I've been figuring out the different cultures. I've wanted to make a very rich, nuanced world with like blurry divides between like state lines, religious lines, language. I wanted to do a bunch of conlang, and it's just been incredibly detailed, and the scope of the story is very large to match that. So there is something to be said about like Crow Story maybe not being too much. Maybe Crow Story is just matching the kind of story that I want to create, but I would put it in the too much category. I largely went into it wanting it to be too much because I spend a lot of time making new ideas and new stories, and it is a lot to complete one comic, and I am constantly making like 500 million comics, so I decided to focus all of this world building energy into a single comic. So that's why Crow Story is the way that it is, but I would say it is a bit too much, especially with conlanging. I think conlanging is just like, if you don't know what conlanging is, it is constructing languages. So it's like making up languages, you know, like Klingon and the Elf languages in like Lord of the Rings or whatever. That's what conlang is. It is way too in depth, and it's just like a fun thing to do. It's not really necessary. It's very unnecessary. I find it opens up my eyes to a lot of things, but like any subject will do that to you. When I think about 9 Point, I really looked into like biology. I wanted to look into like how different cat genetics worked to create a magic system based on cat genes, and then I wanted to make all the mammals from Canada into different like anthro races. So I have a whole bunch of textbooks I look through to create this. So like world building is always going to be a little too much, let's be real, but there are lines, and kind of the line that I'm going to just come back to is like, are you going to get this comic done? If the answer is no, then like you need to stop. You got to stop yourself at some point. It's fine to like continue working on world building too. Like world building can be like a fluid thing that you keep adding to. You just got to be aware of it, I guess. Like, be aware that it can get out of control. I think that's the main factor for me, is like either be aware that like you might never make this comic into reality and you're okay with that, or stop. Okay, stop, move forward. realize that you have enough pieces. If you're the kind of person who is obsessing over world building and loving every minute of it, you probably have more than enough to create a story by now. Like, you don't need anymore. If you have the world building bug, world builder's disease, like, you're gonna be fine. You have enough to work with, you have enough material, and you can fill in things on the spot. Yeah, so that's my opinion on that question. I'll see you guys in another video tomorrow. I thought I'd just chat about world building because I just genuinely really love chatting about world building. I'm sure a lot of you know this, and I am still recovering from this headache. This headache is probably like a pulled muscle in my shoulder because I was gaming too hard. I am behind on recording video for this, so I need to start doing that again. I need to set down the video games. I need to stop. Much like some of you need to put down the world building, I need to put down the video games. I need to stop. I need moderation again. I never injure myself doing art. It's always doing gaming. That's the luckiest curse to have, right? Like, I can do art for hours, but like video game for hours, nah, break my shoulder, have a huge headache for days. So, you know, it's a curse and a blessing when you think about it. Anyways, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay, goodbye.